All right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 o'clock on November 27, 2024 in the council chambers at the Municipal Administration Center. Begin with roll call. Deputy Mayor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Blackwell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Present.
Councillor Prenger.
Present.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray.
Present.
Councillor Stewart.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
I'd like to also acknowledge our municipal staff that's here and some special guests and some other guests that are just here. Thanks for being here. Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. It is with great privilege that we gather here on the shores of Lake Huron, which has been the site of human activity for many thousands of years. We wish to honor the ancestral guardians of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewa of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewa of Saugeen First Nation, who are the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. Today, many Indigenous peoples continue to call this land home. As an organization and as individuals, we at the Municipality of Kincardine are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture and are committed to actions that move us towards a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made, both in caring for these lands and in strengthening and shaping this community.
Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda this evening? I'd like to remind any councillor to disclose any pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof, either now or as it arises in the meeting. And we need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held November 6, 2024, November 13th, 2024 be adopted as printed. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Blackwell. All in favor? That's carried. I'd like to welcome Alexis Cook, Jane Hartley, and Inspector Wilcox, who will be presenting on our Community Safety and Wellbeing Planning Committee. Welcome. Glad you're here this evening.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having us tonight. Am I okay just to jump into it? Perfect. Okay, so community safety wellbeing planning. So this is a Grey Bruce plan started back in 2019 in response to the Ministry of the Solicitor General under the Police Services Act that every municipality must have a community safety wellbeing plan. I'm going to summarize it in 10 minutes today and all of our great work over the years, but happy to take any questions after. Like said, I do have two of our steering committee members here. So Jane Hartley, the Executive Director of Victim Services, Bruce Gray, and Inspector Keegan Wilcox, the South Bruce OPP Detachment Commander, with me as well to take questions afterwards. So when we look at community safety well-being, it's really on upstream prevention. So solving problems before they even happen. We're looking at strengthening coordination and communication amongst various sectors of government and organizations in our community, as well as our general population, as well as we use evidence-based planning and decision-making for all of our plans through our action tables. And then we're looking to do a reduced investment and reliance in our emergency services. So our 911 services around police, fire, EMS, emergency departments as part of this plan. So when we talk about community safety well-being, it is a multifaceted approach that can become quite confusing at times. So we came up with a nice description here. So everyone's using the same language when we talk about community safety well-being. So I'm just going to take a moment to read it here. So community safety and well-being planning helps organizations improve the things that help keep us healthy, happy, and safe. Together, we use research to create solutions focused on education, healthcare, food, housing, income, crime, and belonging. And it is important that we create a welcoming community where problems are solved before they happen and where different professionals as well as community members can come together to help people now and in the future. So looking at community safety well-being from a framework perspective, when it came out, the provincial government provided this framework that you can see in a bullseye here. So looking at the two outer rings of green and blue, we're looking at social development and prevention. So proactively identifying risks, as well as reducing those risks and proactively implementing community safety and well-being in our communities. So our 5 action tables, which I'll chat about tonight a bit further, really focus on those two outer layers. We also do have our situation table for acutely elevated risk, which is our yellow layer there, which is risk intervention. And then as previously mentioned, we have our 911 services on that red layer for incident response. So how did we get our action table started and how did we identify our community priorities? So back in 2020, a community-wide survey went out on the Canadian Index of Wellbeing just to identify areas around accessibility, racism, discrimination, housing, income, crime, anything along those lines, to have community members have their voices heard. We took the data from all community members across Grey and Bruce, compared it with data from Statistics Canada, local community vital signs report, public health data, as well as stakeholder engagement to identify 5 priority areas. Out of those, our action tables were born, or if they already existed in the community, we brought them under the umbrella of the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan to make best use of our resources and not duplicate in the community. Each of those action tables have action planning using evidence-based information, data, and peer-reviewed literature. And then we move over to implementation. Following implementation of those initiatives, we measure those outcomes to see the successes as well as lessons learned to improve them moving forward. So our 5 action tables are housing and homelessness, poverty and income, mental health, addictions and substance use, as well as crime prevention. So our housing and homelessness table, I'm not going to read all the partners at the bottom here, but it's led by our Homelessness Response Steering Committee. And a few of their current initiatives are working on a coordinated access guide, the real cost of homelessness, and development of an encampment referral process, as well as a protocol for responding, and a by names referral, as well as a prioritization update. So our poverty and income, this was one of our tables as well that was already existing in the community and brought under the umbrella of community safety wellbeing. And it's led by our Bruce Gray Poverty Task Force. So current initiatives, everyone would have recently saw the living wage that came out. They participated and supported that with the United Way. They're looking for recruitment for their community volunteer income tax clinic right now to help individuals submit income tax and looking for support for year-round filing. They also are redesigning their website to have more engagement with the public as well as municipalities, councillors, etc. And they are developing a campaign right now to engage with employers in the community to be living wage employers, so paying that $23.05. So our mental health action table here, it's led by our mental health and addictions networking table, so Keystone, CMHA, Bright Shores Health System. They're currently working on various initiatives. Just this year, they launched a new program within Owen Sound there, the Bright Shores Wellness and Recovery Center, provincially led with great program to have in our community. And they're working right now to align their networking table with an action day that the Ontario Health Team led. So had professionals from the sector come discuss gaps, trends in our community and what needs to be done. So developing subgroups to address those specific areas, as well as working on a scorecard to be transparent in the work that's being done in the mental health field right now and put that out to stakeholders as well as the public to see what's moving forward and what's stalled. Our substance use and addiction is led by our community drug and alcohol strategy. And they recently just relaunched a strategic plan for the 2025 to 2029 years, so a 4-year plan. So that is being led with in-kind support from Grey Bruce Public Health, their harm reduction team and the public health nurses there. So they have a few priorities that came out of there. So they're looking to prevent and or delay youth substance use, enhance community safety and the toxic effects and harms of the opioids and the poisonous unregulated drug supply. Also increasing access to culturally inclusive and safe, respectful care. That's also looking at supported services. Also looking to reduce stigma in our communities. So using evidence-based information to do trainings, to do education, and communications out to various members of the community as well as stakeholders. And they're also looking to enhance our overall collaboration between our partners who work together for the addressing substance use and all the factors that contribute to substance use. So our crime prevention table is led by our crime prevention action table. Nice and easy to remember that one. It's all of our 7 police services as well as Crime Stoppers and victim services. So through local data from that 2020 survey, as well as local police data, victim services data, Crime Stoppers data, and more feedback from stakeholders, we identified 4 priority areas. one being road safety, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and intimate partner and gender-based violence. So based off those 4 priority areas in collaboration with partners in the community, we're working on a few different initiatives at the current time. So we've had recently human trafficking and drug trafficking town halls. We've seen over 350 people come out to 3 town halls. So great responses from our community who are looking for more information on how to identify, how to support individuals, what resources are available in our community. We also have a cannabis and driving project that's going to be launching in 2025, focused on young and novice drivers. We have a short-term rental human trafficking resource to help individuals who are renting running short-term rentals so they can identify human trafficking and report it early. We're working with a national foundation, the Joyce Smith Foundation. Also, we have our community road safety survey. So we put a survey out to the community to see what priorities were there for them when it came to road safety. What times of the years did they see these issues arising, and what areas were intersections causing them issues? And we're going to be doing proactive work in the new year with our police services to address those issues. Also, collecting intimate partner and gender-based violence to see what the current landscape is in our community, and working with our partners such as Violence Prevention Grey Bruce on how we can accurately and effectively respond in our community. So next is our yellow ring here, looking at risk intervention, and it's our situation table for acutely elevated risk. So a situation table in a nutshell is a meeting of social services, police, community agencies, all who use combined expertise and experience to work together to really reduce the imminent chance that someone will experience harm from a combination of various risk factors and the heightened chance of immediate or imminent victimization. So the table is really focused on short-term collaborative interventions that occur within 24 to 72 hours, and we currently have approximately 35 multidisciplinary partners from police, healthcare, our First Nations, Child Family Services, public health, anyone who can support with that acute intervention. So when I talk about acutely elevated risk in our situation table, there's a definition from OACP, so the Ontario Associations of Chiefs of Police. But basically, it's a situation that negatively affects the health and safety of an individual or individuals or a place. So we don't just look at people or families, we also look at dwellings, we look at neighborhoods, anywhere there's heightened risk. So it's a risk that cuts across multiple human services disciplines, and it's going to be a significant harm. So it's not just a mere inconvenience to that individual or others. So STAR results. So back in 2023, we had 29 situations come to our table. Our table voted that 25 met criteria for acutely elevated risk. Of those 25, 17 had their acutely elevated risk lowered as a direct result of the table. So 68% and 23 individuals were supported. In 2024, year to date, we've had 21 situations. 16 have met acutely elevated risk. Currently, we have 2 situations that are open and being worked through right now. But with the 14 that have been closed, we have a 93% rate of acutely elevated risk being lowered. And we've had 65 individuals who've had their acutely elevated risk lowered. Probably wondering, why did we have more situations last year than this year, but more people helped serve this year? For one of our situations this year, we had a neighborhood involved where 39 individuals were able to be supported within that 24 to 72 hour window as a direct result of the situation table. So just to put that into perspective, because it's hard to conceptualize sometime, here's a direct situation from 2023 with our situation table. I've redacted all personal information, but this was in Grey Bruce. So we had an individual or others in the community who feared for their safety. They called 911 for this individual 53 times within a 2.5 month span. Police responded 100% of those times. EMS responded 9 times. So just the cost of police and EMS going out was just over $16,600. And that individual was in crisis that many times. Others in the community feared for their safety and called 911 because of this person's behavior. They were brought to our situation table. They had immediate intervention. Partners then, after immediate intervention, were able to support them going on further. And we followed that individual for 2.5 months after. They only called 911 6 times. No one else in the community called on them as fear of safety. Police responded 6 of those times. EMS didn't have to go out once. So we saw an 89% reduction in those 911 calls, 100% reduction to EMS services, and a cost savings of just over $15,000. That individual also didn't feel that they were in crisis, that they needed those 911 supports. Others in the community didn't fear for their safety and called 911 on this individual. This individual had better outcomes for their mental health and addiction support in the community versus using 911 services. So this is a very, very long list of objectives that I tried to cut down. It was very challenging. So this is just looking July 2023. Oh, sorry, I can't read it that far. Oh gosh, okay. 2023, we applied to a bunch of grants. We were successful in quite a few, developed lots of social media campaigns to really educate the community to get involved with this, increased membership at our Star Table. We've had intergenerational trauma through an Indigenous lens. We've had 2S LGBTQ plus training for individuals. 2025, we're looking to relaunch our survey for community safety and well-being to measure our 5-year outcomes. We also have a requirement under legislation through the Policing Act to update our plan by July 2025. So working on that to get feedback from the community. We're going to host a youth health day at the Saugeen Valley Children's Safety Village, continue to increase our knowledge, participation, and action tables, and ensure that our equity deserving and marginalized populations have voices at the table and engage with people with lived experience further, such as through our community drug and alcohol strategy with their peer advisory committee and people who have lived experience with substance use. Thank you very much. I need my glasses to see that far.
Ms. Cook, thank you so much for that presentation. There was a lot of information compiled there. Question or comment from council members? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Good presentation. I'm still a little bit confused. You seem to take on a huge amount of responsibility and everything, and I'm not quite sure how it impacts us personally, more macro than micro. But I want to ask you, who actually is funding this program? It's a Police Act that asked for it. Provincial government, I think, gave some funding, but they're actually asking for a new plan, and you have to redo the plan every 5 years and da. Who's going to fund this program as we move forward? Is it provincial or is it our dollars?
Thank you very much for the question through you, Chair. So we are provincially mandated to have this plan, but there is no financial attachment to it from the province. So our community did not get any funding from the province for community safety well-being. So it is currently funded 50% from Bruce County and 50% from Grey County.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I'm lucky enough to sit on this committee as a representative for our council, and the work that's done is immense. It's really impressive. And one of the things I was just going to speak to, yesterday I was at an event with Jill from the Bruce Grey Poverty Task Force, and we were talking a lot about the upcoming 5-year outcome measurement and how conditions for a lot of folks since the pandemic especially have become more challenging. And so I want to perhaps give that caveat that the 5-year outcomes might look worse, even though this incredible work has been going on. And I think that doesn't speak or reflect on the work that's been done. I think that's more of the cascading challenges that are being faced. But it is quite impressive each quarter to hear what's going on, and I'm really grateful for the work that you do, and thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Really appreciate having you there, Councillor Blackwell. And definitely we will see impacts of COVID-19. So when we do put our report out, we do have literature that supports the data and can tell a story. Also looking to collect a little more qualitative data versus quantitative so we can better understand how COVID-19 impacted people, and that maybe is not necessarily a direct influence to community safety well-being outcomes because of the COVID-19 pandemic and what we've seen across the province and the whole world. Thank you.
Councillor Stanoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I was just curious if there was any trends that you're seeing. I know, for example, human trafficking has become a higher issue than I think it ever has been before, or else we're just more aware of it. But it's obviously something, as well as the opiates. Like, we're seeing more and more signs of it that we haven't necessarily seen before. And I'd be curious if you see any trends in the data that as a municipality we should be aware of and thinking about other ways through our work that we might be able to target. I wouldn't mind your insights if you've seen anything.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. So specifically looking at the opioid situation, year to date, from January to September, we've had about 30 more suspected opioid overdoses than we did at this time last year. We recently just had another fatality. We lost a community member due to a suspected opioid overdose. We have seen a way more toxic drug supply. So we're seeing opioids such as fentanyl or methamphetamine being cut with tranquilizers, animal tranquilizers, xylazine, and they're not responsive to naloxone in the same way. Also, some concerns in what municipalities can do as well is learn about naloxone. It is effective for opioid overdoses, and a lot of people do use opioids. So having it available, having it trained, having staff policies on it, how to use it effectively. That is an option you can move forward with. Also, stigma. A big thing that municipalities can support with is reducing the stigma within the municipality, within citizens, just promoting that access to culturally safe, inclusive care for individuals, and that it's okay to go get support if you have an addiction and that you need help. There's lots of supports for you. Here in Bruce County, there's Bruce County Outreach, so it's a low barrier support. It's across different areas. You can see a paramedic, you can see a housing worker, you can get help with legal clinic and see a mental health counselor and get support with addictions all in one place and be very low barrier for individuals. So I think creating that safe environment for individuals and promoting it and being that support as well would be beneficial. I might turn over the human trafficking portion over to Inspector Wilcox.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, human trafficking, it's one of those things where education has been key to the community to make sure that everybody has an awareness of it. And I think what you're likely seeing at this point in our communities is that level of education has increased significantly over the last number of years. And I think part of that, or I can say part of that, is due to the municipality's commitment. The grant, I can't quote me on years, but the grant cycle that ran previously, there was a lot of hard work put in by the municipality of Kincardine. And I suspect that a lot of that education and awareness is as a result of the great work that was done there. And again, education is the key to preventing that type of crime. It's that awareness. It's making sure that everybody's on the same page to help protect victims when they're victims and having that conversation. Thank you.
Councillor Henchberger, please.
Thank you, through Chair. Over the last couple of years or so, as the situation table can make any comments about how changes in access to housing have had an impact on trends that you're seeing in terms of people who are moving sort of up the risk table?
Yes, so housing is, we track risk factors through the Ministry of the Solicitor General. We have a risk tracking database. So housing is actually not in our top 3 risk factors. Our top 3 risk factors we see is criminal involvement or victimization, basic needs, so not being able to meet your own basic needs. So looking at like food, clothing, housing would kind of fit in there. We do have a separate section specifically. And then also mental health is a top one. But with the challenges with housing, as everyone's seeing across the province in Canada, for that, it is a challenge for individuals to be housed and to stay housed too. So if we look at a housing first strategy, once we get someone into housing, they need to have supports as well to help keep them in housing. So whether that's maybe financial supports or it's support with activities of daily living or independent activities of daily living or mental health or addiction supports. A lot of us are very fortunate not to think about a lot of these things and how they impact our ability to stay housed effectively. And also the options in the community too. I know the county is working very hard and private providers too to make sure people have options for housing as well too, and looking at developments. So I think it's a great option, but for a lot of people it needs to be more supportive housing as well too, which I know the county's working towards right now to have more supportive housing in our community, which is a great step moving forward.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thanks for your presentation. I appreciate the comprehensive approach that this plan takes. And my questions around your plans. You talked at the end about your plans for next year. You talked a little bit about increasing participation on the action tables. Is there an opportunity for the community or the public to be engaged in these tables? And if so, how?
Yes. So we have a website. It's www.cswb.on.ca. I'll get you the exact one. But the public can reach out and I can connect them with various action tables. The only one the public can't sit on is our situation table for acutely elevated risk, given that we do have confidential information and we're all bound by different privacy legislation, whether it's PHIPAA, MFIPA, or FIPA. The public doesn't fall under the same confidentiality. Otherwise, they're able to participate in the other ones. They just have to reach out to myself and they can participate how they would choose. We also have various little committees within. So when I talked about the community drug and alcohol strategy, if you're someone with lived experience with substance use and you'd like to give your experience to, they have the peer advisory committee for that. Or we have specific projects such as our cannabis and driving project, which is a subgroup. So if you don't want to commit to the full capacity, and a lot of times it's challenging for people, it's during work hours for a lot of people, you can participate in a subgroup, or we do surveys out to the community as well. So I'd encourage, if you can't sit on a group, to respond to the surveys, to give feedback. On the website, there's always a give us a feedback button, and that's open 24/7. And you can email me directly and I'll follow up with you. I'm pretty quick to answer. And I can get back to you and have you engage in whatever way works best for you. So if it doesn't work for sitting on the table, but you want to engage in a different capacity, we'll find what works for you so you can have your voice heard at the table. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for being here. Thank you to Councillor Blackwell for sitting on the Community Wellbeing and Safety Planning Committee as well. I know that the county was pleased to support it so that the leadership of the table could stay intact. It was very appropriate move on their part, I believe. So anyway, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Right, moving on, matters for discussion. We have a report from regarding the Davidson Center generator replacement. And we need a mover and seconder that council approve pre-budget 2025 funding for the Davidson Center generator replacement project in the amount of $600,000 to be funded by the Life Cycle Reserve Fund. Moved by Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Kavanaugh. Director, good evening. Your name's on here. I'm not sure if it's you that's answering the questions or our manager, one or the other, but would you prefer questions or do you want to do a report to broadly explain the motion this evening, or what would you like to do?
I think through you, the report's pretty comprehensive. We're happy to answer any questions. And at this point, we really don't have any more information to add to it.
Okay. Questions from council, please. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. There were a number of questions that were asked by members of council prior to the meeting, and thank you for the replies to all of them. I'm keenly sensitive to the status now and in the future of the Life Cycle Reserve Fund and trying to stretch it in every way possible as far as asset rehabilitation replacement. So one of the questions that I had asked, the answer was that one of the options could be, for instance, isolating the refrigeration plant, which would allow us to go with a smaller size generator. And it was also pointed out that, I know it changes from the time of the year, but you could potentially hold the ice without the refrigeration plant in service for a period of 48 hours, which is what I heard. So, like, for me personally, what I had said previously, and if I also consider that the Parks and Rec strategic or master plan, whichever you want to call it, and the draft strategic plan that council was working on, that identifies some decisions to be made in the future in terms of the Davidson Center and the Tiverton Sports Complex, it's my opinion that we should be proposing a smaller sized generator, which would cost less and take the route of setting up where when power is lost, we essentially dump the refrigeration plant and ensure that the site is able to maintain all of its other functions, including those that might be emergency or safety related. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. If I could just get some clarity around that. When you were pricing the replacement cost, there was a size that would be able to handle the electrical load for the whole Davidson Center. Were there options that you had priced out that were less expensive, or is that a referral back to staff to come with a lower cost generator? Could you speak to that, please? Just so we know whether option B is already available or whether it's just a referral back to staff to say, well, it's the right idea, but the wrong cost, and bring us a different picture.
Yep, thank you, and through your mayor. That's definitely something we'd have to go back. There's be a bit more investigating on the staff's part for us to find out how we can isolate certain items and remove the refrigeration plant from the entire power distribution center on when it's on generator power. But that's certainly something we could do and come back with that information.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, good presentation. It's unfortunate that we own facilities that need to be repaired. And that's the fact of life that we've been going through. And, 600,000 is a big bite out of the budget, but, I don't think we're adding on. It was already included in the budget because I don't want to start adding on to these capital budgets. We had a tendency to do that last year. And, once we sort of, approve a budget, I like to stick with it as best as possible. Yeah, whether it's the ice plant, you want to do this, you want to do that, that's really up to you guys to make that decision. The only thing that I really liked is that, you're looking at two, you're looking at a gas and you're looking at a diesel. My preference would be the diesel generator. It's a little more independent, it's a little easier, long life on those diesel generators versus the gas. They run at a lower temperature. So I'm hoping that you could decide at the end to get a diesel generator. Thank you.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. So we had a brief offline conversation prior to this meeting, myself and the director, about the Davidson Center basically being identified as our emergency center in case of any prolonged power outages or anything like that, as well as our warming and cooling center. And so, well, I think a smaller generator might be able to maintain those services. It does. Is my understanding correct that it would potentially jeopardize the ability to quickly get back to regular programming? Because if we were to say have a week-long emergency and people were needing to be sheltered at the Davidson Center, we would then have to potentially, if we turned off the ice plant, we would lose all our ice. We might potentially lose other access. I'm just wondering if you can speak a little bit about that, how to balance that maybe.
Yep, through your mayor, that exactly what would happen if we were to lose the ice at the Davidson Center. It could take up to 2 weeks to get that ice restored. Staff have to go and remove the existing ice or what's left of it, clean up the pad, and then reinstall. It's also important to note that in the event that we also had ice in Tiverton and we had a power outage in Tiverton as well, we're dealing with 2 ice pads that would require staff's attention to reinstall the ice. There's also the aspect of the pool. So if we lose clarity of the water in the pool, it can take up to 12 hours to restore that clarity, and that is lost revenue. It's difficult to say how much revenue we'd be losing because it really depends on what's going on in the building, but that is definitely a consideration.
Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, well, normally I'm kind of hesitant when it comes to pre-budget approval for a lot of items because the tendency is you commit to a lot of individual things before you see the big picture. In this case, from what I've seen personally, I think this is an excellent decision in future proofing and hedging risk. Get the bigger one, go with it as recommended, and that way you don't have people running through a building with flashlights, flipping breakers here and there. For better or worse, the Davidson Center is a bit of a Frankenstein in that everything isn't laid out optimally. Panels aren't in every single spot, and so you're really relying on the precision and technical ability of a select group of staff to keep things going when you're underpowering it. I think it would be much better to future-proof and go this way with the full-size generator.
Councillor Stanoff, Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I guess I'm a little torn because if there was an event where I needed to house a large portion of my community from an emergency perspective. I don't feel like ice would be first and foremost on the minds of the community. So I guess the question that I would have is, and this might be unfair, and so if it is, I'm happy to have the question rejected and brought back later, but could you help me understand the difference in price between the two? Because we know there's a lot of life cycle things that we need to do with the Davidson Center, and that was figuring out what we want to do with that building and how we structure it as part of the parks plan and recreation facilities plan you brought forward. So I just, knowing that we're not quite there, we haven't had those discussions, and not knowing what full use cases we have envisioned for that building, I wouldn't mind understanding what the differential in price is between the smaller one and the larger one, because do we need a stopgap, or are we safe enough with what we have? I don't want a last minute decision. I'd like to understand the risk balance, knowing that there are decisions that need to be made with that building.
Certainly, and through your mayor, it's difficult to make the determination without having an electrical engineer come in and look at our power distribution center, because there's going to be, we're dealing with a very old system at the Davidson Center when it comes to power distribution. So there's likely going to be new panels that we have to put in, potentially new wire that needs to be run. So the cost of the generator itself is only a part of that analysis. And I don't want to give a number that's going to be completely off when we get that information back.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Just to follow up, do you have an idea, like Councillor Stewart kind of mentioned a little bit about the different life cycle, perhaps, of different kinds of generators? Just on average, is there an expectation of the life cycle of a generator? And even in a best case scenario, would it align perhaps with us pursuing alternative options for recreation? In that, I can't foresee us having a new building in 15 years if a generator is about 15 years old.
So the life cycle on the generator is about 20 to 25 years. 25 is really pushing it. Our life cycle forecasting puts it at 20 years.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. If I understand it correctly, and I don't know if I am, that the current generator always lacked the capacity to serve the entire building. And I just wanted to confirm what's driving the timing of the replacement now, like to do pre kind of budget.
Yep, and through your mayor, the timing on this one is really driven by the lead time that we have to get the unit. We're really hoping we can get it before next winter and not have to go another 2 winters with the generator as is, because it does require staff to, for instance, if the power goes out in the evening, race back to the facility so we can start to switch off some of those key systems that we know the generator can't run. And it hasn't been an issue yet because staff have been really diligent in making sure someone's available to do that. But if someone's not available to get there or can't get there because of adverse weather, there could potentially be issues with damaging equipment.
Follow up, please.
Through your chair. So just to confirm, Councillor Stewart had made a reference that that it would be in the budget if it, like you were doing it now instead of, but it would have been in the budget. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Kavanaugh that we approve pre-budget 2025 funding for a $600,000 generator funded through the Life Cycle Reserve. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Peer safety update. Once again, welcome, Director. We need a mover and seconder that council approve the closure of both the north and south piers annually from November 1st to April 1st to mitigate safety risks to staff and public. Moved by Councillors Stewart and Clark, Deputy Mayor Clark. Once again, Director, would you like to speak or just answer some questions? Okay. Questions, please. Councillor Stewart, you made the motion.
Thank you. And I've always supported closing the piers. I always think they're a little bit dangerous, especially in the winter when the ice built up and you have no control. The only change I would make, and maybe as the council would agree with me, instead of a November 1st, I would probably move it to December 1st. very much like we're probably going to do with the Mystic Cove gates. But November 1st is a little bit early. We get a lot of storms, but we aren't getting really the snow. So that's the only change, but I fully support this to close them. Thank you.
Are you making a friendly amendment to that?
I think I'll make a friendly amendment unless Jane, but I'd like to change the date from November 1st to December 1st.
Pardon me?
Yep,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's just a friendly.
Deputy Mayor, do you concur with that proposed amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment. Is it, oh, we don't have to vote on the friendly amendment. Okay, so it's the same motion. We've moved the date to December 1st rather than November 1st. Further questions? Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I'm leaning towards the opposite approach, only because this sort of flies opposite of what the recommendations were from the Peer Safety Committee. And the Peer Safety Committee, to give some background to the public and through council, if you indulge me, decided to look into the data behind the callouts to the peers. So we were looking at emergency service callouts and looking at the callouts for service, with the exception of one case of one individual who was, intentionally there. The data showed that our peer incidents that we're concerned about happened during our swim season, say end of May to the end of September, so to speak. While I can appreciate that there is a danger for anyone going on to the piers in the winter, and I support putting up signage that would say to that effect, use at own risk, trail closed, and even signs that would say equipment may be maintained less because of weather. I don't support closing the piers. I know there's countless social media posts that came out last Christmas that showed some lovely pictures of our members of our community enjoying it on Christmas Day. And I also feel that it is a mistake for council to start trying to close things when we have no way of enforcing it. We could put up some parking barricades, but I guarantee you the wind will blow them down or people will circumvent them. And so for those reasons, I will probably be opposed to this motion.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Perhaps the director can assist on this. Part of the concern, from my understanding from the report, is the hazardous or safety conditions with those having to go out. And I wonder if there maybe no more than anecdotal evidence on this, but was that problematic? Has that been problematic, or is that sort of precautionary and proactive? Like, I hear what Councillor Kavanaugh has stated about the Peer Safety Committee and their views on this, but I'd like a little bit more context in relation to where the concerns are about closing.
Thank you for the question, and through you. I can confidently say that the past 3 to 4 years, it's been a different process when we look at the management of the piers, from everything from taking all the equipment off and leaving them open, to leaving some equipment out there, to closing the piers as we did last year. I'd like to say we have a long list of statistics. We do not. And I can confidently also say that in all good intentions, and when the Peer Safety Ad Hoc Committee was in place and proposed these recommendations of keeping the pier open, and yep, staff approved that as well and abided by that, because the committee had a lot of people on it from our community that have used those piers for many, many years. But over the course of when that Peer Safety Ad Hoc report was approved, we've had a lot of lessons learned as well, and particularly when it comes to the piers. We also recognize the fact that the piers are somewhat territorial as well, with residents of our community and visitors as well. And what I mean by that, there are times when the equipment is missing or has been vandalized that the community will take it upon themselves to call us. And so when we propose this notion of closing the piers, we recognize the fact that we cannot keep up to our minimum level of standard by providing equipment out on those piers at all times. And going through research and reaching out to communities that also have piers and how they manage that. We took all of that into consideration. This recommendation was not taken lightly. As I said, lots of research had gone into place, including talking to our legal as well to get some advice on whether or not, if the piers are going to remain open, what signage should be considered, and if they are going to be closed, what signage should be considered as well. So there's a lot of moving parts with this, and I'm not sure if I've totally answered your question or not, and I apologize if I haven't, and if you wanted to ask it again. But, we respectfully acknowledge the fact that the Pier Safety Advisory Committee was in place to come up with recommendations and decisions. And as we have been living it over the course of the last 8-9 months, we as staff have quickly realized that some of those recommendations really aren't as achievable as we had hoped they would be.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your chair. If there had been a weather component or weather dependent part of this, I might be able to accept this, but I'm aligned with many of Councillor Kavanagh's comments regarding this. My partner and I are regular walkers of the dog along the waterfront, and I'd suggest that almost during this period of time, it might get almost as much use by people and fishermen as it does during the regular part of the year. And the data doesn't really support there being that same kind of risk as there is during the summertime, especially when you have visitors here who may not understand the hazards to the same degree as people who have a lot of experience here. So I can't support the recommendation.
Councillor Williams, please.
So through you, Chair. So your recommendation is based on closing the pier and removing or not accessing or maintaining the equipment. And Councillor Kavanagh is talking about the option to potentially keep the piers open but have enter at own risk signs, and maybe you don't do maintenance. I'm not really sure what that looks like, but is that a reasonable option based on the liability the municipality might have? Like, can we talk a little bit about what that option was made? Like perhaps you considered it and what that would look like?
Thank you for the question, and through you. Yeah, absolutely. Staff have considered all options. And from a prospect of keeping the piers open and leaving the equipment out there, as I started to say before, they still continue to get vandalized. People will take it upon themselves to call us to say the ring buoys have been tossed into the lake or the reaching poles have blown off, whatever the case may be. What we're saying is we are not in a position to go out and maintain those during the winter months, A, through capacity, and B, through the hazard condition. And so if it's council's direction that the piers remain open, we would leave the equipment out there and we would put up appropriate signage that says use at your own risk.
Councillor Stanoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, I think this is maybe a two-parter question, but I'm thinking about roads that aren't maintained during winter. There's a very clear sign saying this road's not maintained during winter. So when I read your report, one of the concerns that was outlined was the concern of risk to staff trying to maintain the equipment. So if we had signage saying that the equipment is not maintained and closed for winter, use at own risk, similar to the way we do roads, because those roads are still passable in the winter. It's very clearly warning that it is not maintained, because obviously I wouldn't expect, I can understand that perspective, not necessarily closing the piers, but understand the concern that staff have raised about attempting to maintain that equipment during that time. And if there are any gross negligences that needed to be addressed, hopefully the community would escalate accordingly. But I am curious, because you said that we do have ongoing vandalism. What are, I guess, how do I say this nicely? What the cost is of the reordering of the equipment that is being damaged or thrown into the lake. And if we have like a reorder point or like a stocking mechanism so that we aren't caught come the normal swimming season without appropriate resources for when those acts of vandalism happen. So I wouldn't mind a little more detail on how often that was happening. Sorry.
Thank you for the question. Through you, I don't have the information on what our stock has that we reordered. I know we've had a number of conversations in our office in regards to the cost of a reaching pole. I think it was 2,500,
Yeah, a little bit less, but
2,000 or whatever the case may be, 1,700. We order them multiple ones so that we have them in stock. So then when they are thrown into the lake, we can replace them immediately. In the summertime, our minimum level of standard is to inspect them weekly. We do it daily. So we ensure that there's staff in the vicinity daily. We don't have that luxury in the summertime as well. So that's why, again, as I said it before, whatever council's direction is, we will put up appropriate signage that says that they will not be inspected over the course of the winter.
Do you have a follow-up, Counselor? You said it was a two-parter. Okay. Counselor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, I think we sometimes forget that, most of us who live here understand the water and the danger of the water. Even at Inverhuron, we almost had 2 drownings this year, and they were from people not living at Inverhuron or guests. The guest population has also, unfortunately, drowned in those piers too during the summer. So it's hard to sort of talk about this without talking about guests. And unfortunately, people do slip into the water. And we have to mention that, part of our staff is called the firefighters, and they are not trained for this ice kind of rescue, but they would try. Knowing them, they would try. Talk to the police, they're no longer here. But this is a very dangerous situation. If someone slips into the water, they both will be called along with the paramedics. Do you really want to have that in your conscience? I mean, we really need to sort of safeguard ourselves. Yes, for people around the table that have lived here a long time, when to go out to the pier when it's sunny and there's no ice and everything else. But how do we control that? Do we need a monitor at the end of the pier and go, oh, you can go today? No, you can't go tomorrow. But I really do think that it would be safe, at least try it for a year and just close it up. People are going to sneak around it all the time. They did it before. We didn't have a lot of control, but I just think a safety thing for the community, and along with some of our firefighters and police, I just think it's a great idea to do it.
My turn. My concern in this motion is the mitigating the safety risk to staff. Pardon me? It's in the motion. Mitigate safety risk to staff and public. And it does not send a good message either to our staff or to anybody else if we are asking the employees under our purview to maintain a facility that is physically challenging in the winter months. The other part that comes into this equation in my head is if we close the piers, even on a trial basis, when somebody goes around, the unfortunate happens, they fall in, they look for a pole or something, it's not there because we've taken them all in, or somebody's chucked them off the edge of the pier or something. Like that's bad too. Signage doesn't protect us, it's closed. Well, yeah, but you didn't build an enormous wall that I couldn't get around. There's all sorts of inherent dangers no matter which way we go. The question that arises out of this, if we do not close it, can you explain again one more time the level of inspection or service that you would suggest municipal staff would be fulfilling upon the piers?
Thank you for the question. Our minimum level of standard for inspections during the wintertime would be to ensure the signage that is that indicates use at your own risk, and equipment will not be inspected in the wintertime, and we will not be out there inspecting in the wintertime. We can eyeball it from the shoreline, but really it is not our intention to send staff out to that environment. As much as staff is trained, they have the PPE on. I shared a picture with council of staff repairing a ladder. That was on a warm October day, a very windy October day, which that picture did not depict. And that's October. I think the temperature was one of those crazy days, which was 25 degrees for October. So you can imagine what the temperature is like in the wintertime to have staff to go out there. Black ice, it's not an environment that I think we should be sending staff out. And as the report indicates, Joint Occupational Health and Safety also confirmed that as well.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I think having read back through the Peer Safety Committee ad hoc committee report, there is acknowledgement that there's no staff capacity to open and close gates intermittently based on weather conditions. So if a choice is to close it, it would be based only on dates. But it's also noted that there's challenging for inspections of the life-saving stations during winter months, and that their recommendation was the pier remain open, but signage should be installed to identify life-saving stations will not be inspected from November 1st to March 31st annually. So I think there was a consideration. That committee involved folks from the marina, from police, from fire, from the community. And so I don't want to put our staff in a position where they feel they need to be out there inspecting things. But at the same time, I'm concerned because we have attempted to close it in the past. It hasn't necessarily been effective. And I think until we take a broader and more resourced approach to understanding how to open and close it, to actually do that in a safer way, I would be open to keeping them open with acknowledgement that we're not going to have staff out there inspecting them, and it is used at your own risk, as it should be, I think.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thanks, through you, Chair. I just want to confirm, when we talk about closure, there's a physical barricade that people won't be able to go through?
Through you, there will be a physical barricade up. I can't comment if people can't go through it, because people will find a way to go around it.
Deputy Mayor, please. You had a question?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And I think having had the issue raised about staff safety during the winter months, I think it's acknowledged, certainly from around this table, that none of us would wish to see staff in danger in trying to maintain this. And perhaps to echo a little bit about what Councillor Blackwell had said, is that there's an acknowledgement that staff really wouldn't be going out there. And I think you've said that as well, Director, that the intention is, irrespective of what the decision is, staff during that period of time won't be going out there. So I think we can safely say that that mitigates the concerns about staff safety, because I don't think anybody would want to see anything different. I think the real sort of balancing feature, which I don't know that I'm persuaded on either way, is one, going back to Councillor Williams' point, is that in the past, when it has been closed, people have still gone around it. And so there's the concern and the issue as to whether that ends up mitigating what we really are trying to mitigate. And if not, are we in a worse position by sort of trying to close it and not having any equipment out there, or sort of leaving it open with all of the acknowledgement and signs that it won't be maintained, do use at your own risk. And I don't know that I've particularly landed firmly on either one, but I just wanted, I suppose, to echo the fact that staff is not going to be expected to go out during the winter months.
Thank you, and through you. The peer safety recommendation report also identified a more robust gate system, and it is identified also in this report too. I put it in for council just for your consideration. A really good example is the one from Port Stanley, where annually it is a gated system, aesthetically pleasing, that is closed each year, and is effective in keeping people off the pier. And so if we're for this particular year, our recommendation for closing it, we wouldn't be doing anything robust as that. But if it's council's long-term thought that they are closed every year, then we would be investing in something that is more permanent in that structure, and again, is aesthetically pleasing.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I actually think Jane just provided me some details that I was going to ask, because we had closed the piers at one point in time, and if we're using the same barrier as we did last time, it didn't prove very effective. So from that perspective, I would actually like the more moderate approach of the signage, acknowledging that we're not maintaining the pier or the equipment because our expectation is that it is out of season use, but not necessarily closing, because I don't know how we control it. So, and to Councillor Hinchberger's point, and the data that was provided by the committee, it doesn't seem like most of our responses are during these months. I think the people that are leveraging them are there because they're walking or they understand the conditions and are making a conscious decision. I know I myself have not been out in the pier in the wintertime, but that's a judgment call on my own part because I'm, not the most coordinated individual you've ever met. But from that perspective, I know that the surfer community, who's one of the primary groups that does rescuing for us, they use the beach way longer than I would ever use a beach. And so I really wouldn't want to infringe upon that recreational use. So for me, it's something that obviously we need to discuss, but at this given time and based on the way we would close the pier, I just personally feel like the signage and leaving it open would be my preference without staff being out there.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, I think we've had a good, robust, I think it's time to vote, and I would ask for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Yes, and just so there's no doubt, you've said this 3 times already, but I'd like you to reiterate one more time. In the event that this motion is defeated, can you explain one more time the level of service that will be afforded on the piers?
Yes, thank you. And through you, the level of service will be that we will have the signage depicting what has been recommended by our legal team. We will not be sending staff out to do any requirements on the piers at all throughout the course of the winter based on the dates that we've identified here. After such time, we will start our regular SOPs of doing bi-monthly inspections, and in the summertime, we do weekly inspections.
Clerk, please. Oh,
Sorry, just before we can begin, can I request that you read the motion before the vote?
yeah, I would be happy to read the vote or read the motion. So it's moved by Councillor Stewart and seconded by Deputy Mayor Clark that council approves the closure of both the north and south piers annually from, as amended, December 1st to April 1st to mitigate safety risks to staff and public.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Blackwell,
No.
Councillor Williams,
No.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray,
No.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
No.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councillor Hinchberger,
No.
Councillor Prenger,
No.
and Mayor Craig.
No. Director, Manager, thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate your wisdom in guiding some important issues through council deliberations. Appreciate it. All right, consideration of bylaws. We need a mover and seconder that the appoint bylaw enforcement Municipal Support Services, Inc. 2024 be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2024-150. The bylaw is to update the role of bylaw enforcement officers. Councillor Steinhoff Gray and Kavanaugh. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and enacted in one motion, except for any items that are withdrawn by council members for discussion either this evening or in a subsequent meeting. Are there any items that council members would like to comment on? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, I'd like to comment and also poll 8.1. I hope I got it. B under communication, B under David Snyder, Princess Street motion. Also, I'm going to comment on it and then I'll pull it for a future discussion. There's quite a large group. My comment is they approached me And this thing from our vote didn't go over as well in the community. And they're working on a petition, and they're also working on a delegation coming to council. I'm hoping, because we lost 4 counselors during this discussion. You remember there's only 5 of us, mainly because there was a lease involved with Bruce Power. I'm hoping that lease gets passed or it gets resolved, and then we can have a robust discussion with all 9 of us. So I'd like to pull this and bring this up to a later date, probably in January. Thank you.
Is there a particular action or motion or anything, or just will you confer with staff about the intent of, like, it can be on the agenda, that's not the issue. The issue is, so what? Like, do you just want to consider?
The information in this letter is going to be brought forward again through the delegation and through the petition. So I think it's worthwhile to keep it off for now, the consent file, pull it back, and it will be asked to be placed when they do a delegation. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we need a mover and seconder. The council approved the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated November 27, 2024. Direct staff to proceed with all necessary and administrative actions, except for 8.1 B, D, BB. There we are.
8.1 BB, I believe.
Those are, anyway, all in favor? And that's carried. Was there a mover and seconder? Kavanaugh and Clark. Still all in favor? Okay, thank you. Member of council, general announcements. Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Councillor Blackwell mentioned earlier, she and I both attended Kingarden Probus Club, hosted a session yesterday afternoon at Knox Presbyterian Church, where a speaker from the United Way and the Grey Bruce Poverty Task Force spoke about poverty in the area. And it originally started around things related to food, the Good Food Box program, but inevitably got into housing as well. And it was a real eye opener for everybody in attendance. Some facts that stick out for me is that 8% of the population in the municipality lives below the poverty line. The 2 biggest groups that make up that 8% are seniors and those between the age of 0 and 5. It was announced earlier today that the living wage for this area had been updated to $23.05. That's kind of a composite of the 3 sort of scenario groups: single person household, single adult, 1 child, 2 adults, 2 children. I can remember asking the question of them. So that's an assumption. I used the single person household. That's working 40 hours a week. There was a lot of things that it covered, a lot of things that it didn't, including savings and most things most of us take for granted. And the eye opener was, I can still remember a bit of the gasp or the muttering from the crowd that at that wage, using the calculation for affordable housing, would require a rent of $1,500 a month. And I'm pretty sure somebody 2 over from me said, that exists here, never. So it was a real, there were a number of people there that I think that they had had their eyes open. I hope that there are more presentations like that occur throughout our community, and that not just members of council, but members of the community as well take the opportunity to attend. Thanks.
Councillor Prenger, please.
No comments today.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, and through you, I have a couple of disturbing sort of announcements, and one of them actually involved yesterday when we went for breakfast. We're invited guests on the Chamber of Commerce, and sometimes I think we have to accept criticism. That's just part of being on a councillor. And, we were giving a presentation to the chamber, and they gave us our feedback that disturbed me, and I believe it even disturbed the mayor and everybody. And I think that we probably should take a serious look at that, throw it into the staff and really sort of understand what happened there, because we were doing a little bit of an exercise and we were telling them what we were doing and everything else. And when it came down to sort of judging or voting on it, didn't give us a passing grade. It was more poor to failing. So I just want to understand this because I don't interact with that group as much, but I think it's important for us to understand and to sort of reach out to them and see if we can help them. And I think that, the mayor would agree with me, but, the staff will need to come back with a report or at least come and talk to us. The second thing that really disturbed me.
Before you go on, I'm just going to direct that towards our manager of strategic initiatives, who is there on staff's behalf. And just to inquire if there is opportunity for council just to receive the results of that survey, put it a little bit of context. And that might direct, coming up to our strategic planning meeting, that might have an influence if we are able to get those results, manager.
Through you, Mayor Craig. Absolutely, we can share the results with council. We gave a progress report, 2 key areas from the municipality. One was community services infrastructure, which did fare better in the scoring. The other was the development. And I know the chamber has very much concerns around development in the community and lack thereof, as they had said. And so part of it is, I think council's strategic directions looking at development. I think all of that will help, but I definitely know there's concerns, and we can bring back a report if that's, what is getting in the way, what's happening there.
Is that what you're looking for, Councillor Sorda?
That's absolutely, because we have to acknowledge that it was a little bit of a low point, so we need to understand it. The other thing that concerned me that I know the council's not really in favor of, but there was an article in the Kincardine Record that wasn't flattering to any of us on council or staff. And tonight, I guess we're not going to discuss it openly, but sooner or later, we are going to have an open discussion on it. But I'll wait until, because it's part of the closed meeting. But that article really had an impact on myself and a lot of the community. I spent most of Sunday handling phone calls and emails. So just wanted to say, Liz is in the room, I guess, but she's not. But that article, I hope it's not all true. All I can say is so, but we'll wait until the close. Thank you.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. On a happier note, I'm happy to be hosting with my work colleagues in my other job at Community Living a Christmas celebration this coming Saturday. We're going to, it's hosting at the Davidson Center and utilizing a lot of the programs that already exist there. So we're hosting a free kinder gym. We're hosting a free skate. We'll also have cookie decorating and lots of fun activities and opportunities for people to get involved. That's our organization's give back and thank you to the community each year. It's a fantastic way to spend the day before the Christmas parade in the evening. So it's about from 10:30 until 2 o'clock. The other thing I wanted to mention was that coming up on December 6th is the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. And locally, the Canadian Federation of University Women will be commemorating the 14 women who were murdered in Montreal because they were women. And so there's going to be a vigil on Friday, December 6th from 7 till 9 at the Kincardine United Church. I think especially given some of the data that I've been seeing around gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and the fact that our own council has called and for the province to recognize intimate partner violence as an epidemic, that's going to be a very important night just to be reflecting and thinking about what we can all do to continue to fight against some of that. So thanks.
Councillor Williams, please.
I also attended the chamber breakfast, and it was a great opportunity to meet with a lot of the small business folks. And I certainly have to say that I was particularly impressed with how engaged they are and how interested they are in the community and the health of the community. And I know that there was some discussion after about ongoing engagement, and I look forward to kind of continuing that dialogue with them because it was a great meeting and a great group.
Councillor Stanoff-Gray, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we're going to be doing the Christmas tree lighting in Tiverton at St. Andrews Park on Sunday, 6 p.m. So I know that I'm going to be there, and I'm glad that I didn't screw up the date. Thank you. So it should be a good time, though.
Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. I'd like to echo that the chamber breakfast was excellent. Kinsocial serves a wonderful breakfast, and I wish them luck in that going forward. We have our, as mentioned, but I just want to reiterate, we have our Santa Claus Day Parade at 4 o'clock in Kincardine, the lighting of the lights December 1st in Tiverton. And the last one I'd highlight, you can't get tickets for it anymore, but Walker House sold out their Christmas tea social on the 14th. So congratulations to them. Thank you.
What day is the Kincardine Santa Claus Parade? He didn't, I don't think.
So November 30th, this Saturday, 4 p.m.
Deputy Mayor, please.
No announcements.
CAO.
So just a reminder, we've got winter coming. So we know that there is an expectation we're going to have some significant weather. And as you know, we do issue significant weather statements. With respect to our unique situation with Mystic Cove, where there is a gate, council has determined the dates of when it is closed and open, but in the context of a significant weather event that is outside of that date, staff do have the authority to close that once the declaration has been made. Open the closed gates. So yeah, it's the regular opening will be December the 1st. But based on weather conditions that we see coming this weekend, it may be open sooner than that. It just depends on what actually happens on the ground. That's it.
Excellent. Okay, we need a mover and seconder that the council move into closed session pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act as amended for the purpose of considering the closed session minutes dated November 13, 2024, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunal affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, potential litigation update, Secord Monument. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, physician recruitment agreement, position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, lease agreement, land adjacent to 177 Harbor Street, labor relations or employee negotiations, collective bargaining update, and further that council return to regular open meeting upon completion. Councillor Hinchberger and Councillor Prenger, all in favor? That's carried. 5-minute bio break.